I've been thinking about Duke basketball a lot lately, and I'm a little nervous. After that Kentucky loss, I just looked at their schedule, and it's an absolute gauntlet. They got Kansas on Friday. No, they got Arizona Friday. Then they got Kansas coming up. Then they got Auburn after that. And those are elite teams. And I was just wondering if John Scheyer is good enough as a coach, X's and O's, to lead this Duke team. Because last year they lost to Arizona. They lost to North Carolina twice. You can't really do that. They lost to I think it was Arkansas. They lost to Arkansas last year. It's like he schedules a lot of elite teams early in the season, but now it's time to start winning these games. The Kentucky loss wasn't really on John Scheyer. People was questioning his coaching, but because he went to Cooper Flag and let Cooper Flag try to cook those last couple of possessions, they ended up in turnovers. But if you watch that game, that second half, Cooper Flag was the only person that showed up. Con Knuckle was shot absolutely terrible. Um, Caleb Foster was a no-show. So Cooper Flag was the only player that was worthy of going to down the stretch of that game. I get it. He could have called a play and better plays, but you just kind of ride the hot hand. Cooper Flag was absolutely amazing in that game down the stretch in the second half. So I don't blame that completely on John Scheyer, but I do question if John Scheyer is an elite enough coach to lead Duke past the elite teams, and we finna find out. Arizona, I get it. They just lost to Wisconsin, but they still are a great test for this Duke team. And then we know what Kansas and we know what Auburn is going to do. Kansas has one of the better resumes in college basketball at this early of a season because they beat North Carolina already. They beat a good Michigan State team, who I think is one of the better unranked teams in the nation. And we know Auburn, they just had a great win against Houston. You can beat Houston. I don't care when, where, what. You beat Houston, you getting people's eyeballs and you getting people's attention. So, dude, this team to me is a Final Four roster. But can John Shire do what he needs to do in terms of X's and O's to get them where they need to go? Because right now it seems like he's more recruiter than X's and O's. And I mean, I get it. He's still a young coach. They got to the Elite Eight last year. They lost to a hot NC State team. So everything's understandable. But they lost both games to North Carolina last year. They lost two. Well, I know for sure they lost like two games to North Carolina last year. Uh, they didn't beat Arizona. It's these elite programs. Duke has been struggling under John Shaw. Let's just keep it a buck. I still think he should get grace. He should get time. But it's his third year. It's time to start getting his ball rolling, especially when you bringing in elite talent after elite talent. And I do question his rotations at times because even against Kentucky, I think Kentucky's an underrated team at this point. But even still, you got to play more guys than you played. I think they only play like 7 or 8 guys, and you got Isaiah Evans off the bench, who's a top recruit. You have the light skinned shooter. I can't think of his name right now, but he's a shooter. He probably should have got some minutes because they couldn't shoot the ball. Uh, ah, I'm just wondering, John Shire, you own the clock in terms of beating elite teams. I do think he was a hell of a recruiter. I think he's a crazy recruiter, and I think he's good for Duke basketball from that standpoint. The brand has been bigger, as big as it's go be. So I think he's good for the brand, but actually on court production, we finna find out a lot about John Shire and his Duke Blue Devils team from now to early no December because like I said, they got Arizona coming up, they got Kansas coming up, they got Auburn coming up. Them is as good as it gets in college basketball. The Kansas and Auburn game, especially because maybe Arizona's kind of on the slight decline, and we'll see how that game goes because they did just lose to Wisconsin, like I said. But I don't know. That Kentucky loss kind of just raised some red flags in a lot of people's minds, and even I kind of was like, it was hard for me to put that loss in particular on John Shire, me personally, just because Con Knuckle was terrible. Caleb Foster was terrible. Tyrese Proctor didn't take too many shots in the second half. I thought Cooper Flag was like took too much of a burden in that second half. Zion James, he got hurt. Malawatch, he got hurt a little bit. Like that was just a weird game against Kentucky. Kentucky, I think, in my opinion, is a very deep team. So I'm not counting out Kentucky when they into the SEC play. I think Kentucky's a very underrated team. But that's a game you still should win. You still have great competition coming up between now and early December. So Kentucky Kentucky was a loss, but if you can beat Arizona, if you can beat Kansas and Auburn, we're gonna be looking at Duke a lot different. But if you lose all those games, you got to get at least two of those three games. You got at least Kentucky, Arizona, Kansas, and Auburn. You got to at least go 2-2. You got to at least go 2-2 in those four games of those blue blood teams. If Duke goes anything under that, if they go 1-3 out of these big games, I think it's gonna be a lot of eyebrows being raised. It's gonna be a lot of questioning of John Scheyer because I do think this is a Final Four roster, but can they meet their potential? Like I like Brown coming off the bench. Like his defense is crazy. Mason Gillis, you probably give a couple of those minutes to Isaiah Evans, the Mason Gillis minutes, but I get it. He's a vet, and you want to surround your young talent with vets. But Malawatch, Cooper Flag, and Con Knuppel, Caleb Foster, Tyrese Proctor, that should be a really good core. I really like that core. Now you got to find your role players and when to play this guy, when to play that guy. Isaiah Evans needs some minutes. The fact that Isaiah Evans didn't get no minutes being a McDonald's All-American, you kind of just got to put him in the game, especially with the way that Khan was shooting. He couldn't have been no worse than that. Like Khan had his moment, but he was supposed to be the best scorer on this Duke team, and he absolutely did not deliver against Kentucky. So I thought John Scheyer was going to at least give Isaiah Evans a couple minutes. But, it is what it is. What do y'all think about Duke this year? What do y'all think about John Scheyer as an X's and O's coach? Because we know he's a hell of a recruiter. What are you expecting from Duke in this next 3-game stretch against these elite teams? Because, like I said, they got Arizona, Kansas, and Auburn coming up. What are your predictions for those games? How are y'all feeling about the Duke program going forward? And just let me know y'all thoughts. I think you got to at least go 2-2. You got to at least go 2-2 in these elite matchups. And you got to start establishing yourself as being Duke and being dominant again. But just let me know how y'all feel in the comments about Duke and John Scheyer as a coach. How y'all feeling about Cooper Flag? Is Cooper Flag living up to expectations? Is he overrated, underrated? What's going on with Duke? Y'all let me know in the comments.
Found some shit I love to do, so I can live comfortable. Searching for a peace of mind, need that when it's time to rhyme. Perfect in every line, any chance I get, and I know it takes time, but I will never quit.